Hi, everyone, and welcome to the End of Life Journey and Beyond, the Sands of Time. My name is Lisa Strahs-Lorenc, and I'm a bereavement specialist. And hi, Susan. It's good to see
Hi,
you.
Lisa. So nice to see you. We were together this week on something else, so that was really nice. My name is Susan Capurso. I'm an end of life doula and legacy creator. And we're talking about a tough topic today. This is a little tough. We're talking about the things that can occur during the advanced stages of a terminal illness. And it it's clear that despite the best medical professionals, when your loved one is approaching end of life, this is a tough stage for anybody. For anybody, it's a difficult time. The focus shifts now. It's not exactly where it was a few weeks ago or a few months ago, and you really need to ensure their comfort, and maximize the quality of the time that you have remaining. This is really important because somehow in our minds we tend to think, well, we still have a lot of time or it's not going to happen. And it's really the final stages. So to know when that unique balance, that line is that you cross is really tough because that line can last from a few weeks to a few months, sometimes a year. I mean, the transition stage can go on for a long time or more. Um, so it depends on the specific illness and the specific circumstances. So yeah, palliative care can play an important intervention, a crucial role in managing symptoms. And so can hospice. And I know firsthand, I'm a hospice volunteer, and they give you a group of five that really helps you along the way. But people tend to think that you can call in hospice at the very end, and that is not correct. You can call hospice a year in advance, and people do come off hospice and don't need hospice anymore. So you need to know that. But you also need to know that there's an invaluable emotional and spiritual support for the patient and their family during these challenging times. So we want to discuss a little bit about that today, Lisa. And I know we both had personal circumstances involving this and a few professional too. So let's just dive right into this, not so wanting to talk about this subject.
Yes, yes. I want to just back up and say that I think it's really important that everybody be very clear about what their wishes are. Be very
Mm,
clear to your family, to the people who are closest to you, to whoever's making the decisions for you, health proxies and all. And just let me tell you how important that is because you don't want to wonder and say, is this person going to do what I asked? Or, what did that person want? And they can't tell you anymore. So let's just start out with be very clear and don't be afraid to speak very plainly about what you want.
openly, honestly.
Yes,
And
yes.
that's
And
hard to do.
it is hard to
Very
do,
hard.
but you really need to because you don't want to end up in a situation where you're wondering, what did that person want? Or in your own self, you don't want to say they're not doing what I asked. So, and
Right.
that's written too. That's all the written things as well, because they're very specific in what they ask for. So two personal stories for me. My mom, who was in the hospital for 7.5 months, and I could not get her out of the hospital, and my husband, who was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer for 15 months. So the stage where I absolutely knew that both were now out of hope stage and into this is really the end is when I saw my mom being put on more and more equipment, more and more machines to keep her alive. Um, and these things happen around you. She said in her wishes that she wanted as many procedures as possible, but that it needs to be where there was still hope for her. Okay. Um, and I took her through all that, and I went through it with her in the hospital. But at a certain point, there was really all the machines were keeping her alive, and and the hospital did something that was really bad, and you got to stay on top of every single thing that happens. She had a heart incident and she had a DNR on there. Okay. Do not resuscitate. And they did resuscitate her. And that was against what was in her charts. And I don't know where the error was. I don't know really what, why that happened. I was really angry because you know, that was where her wishes. And then I ended up having to turn off all the machines a week later because it was clear that she wasn't getting better. And the only thing that was keeping her alive were machines. And it was a big decision, but I knew that that's what she wanted and she had made that clear. So I had to speak to the hospital staff and I had to do the whole patient advocate thing and go through everybody and get, an approval. And then I turned off all the machines and let her die. Very hard to do, but absolutely knowing that that's what she wanted and that they had screwed up, you know. Um, and I didn't want to pursue anything because I just felt enough was enough. But
Yeah.
that was really, and by the way, talk about dates and stuff. The date that she should have died because of that heart attack or heart whatever incident is the same day of the month and the day that my biological mother died, February 25th. And I thought, wow, this is like something like a message. And as I said, they didn't let her die, which they should have. Um, they should not have resuscitated her, period. So that was my first experience, with end of life. She just wasn't doing well after her surgery and it got worse and worse. All right. So that's one incident. The other one was my husband, and he and I fought for a long time. We went to, since he was inoperable, we went to a lot of places, and it was always hopeful, even though we knew it was a horrible disease, it was always hopeful that he would beat this. And we did that for a long time until the last visit. And the last visit, when he was really, really sick, he said to me, listen, when there's no hope anymore, this is it. And he made that very clear to me that he did not want any more procedures, any more anything. He just wanted to be at home, stay at home, and die at home. And he made that clear, and we had agreed. So we got incredible hospice care. He only lasted 1 week. And during that week, we did incredible things. People came to visit, talk about the friendship and talk about, the years. We played all the videos that we had. We looked at pictures. I mean, he was in and out of consciousness. And sometimes he was very alert, and other times he was just not. Um, and we spent each and every minute just reminiscing, and we had somebody come in who was more of a spiritual kind of person. We had, of course, the nutrition people come in. I mean, we had a lot of help, which is really important because you really do need that. We were very prepared. I read everything. I knew everything that was going to happen, but it was very emotional letting go. For me personally, it was, at least he's not going to suffer anymore, because the suffering in the end was really bad, and the disease in of itself was really bad too. So he was surrounded by, family and friends, um, and uh, and we let him go. So those are my
Lisa, I think I think this is an extremely painful time. It's painful,
yes,
okay? But you have to try to know when that fine line is that I talked about before, which means open communication with the medical professionals,
yes,
with hospice. They know, they know when your body's shutting down. They
yeah,
know when one organ's going after the other. They know the signs. You may not know,
yeah.
but they know. So having that open line of communication with them, I think, is the first key, because you need to know, is this time coming? And then it's really a huge, huge feat to express your goodbyes and to say your goodbyes and talk to them. In most of my passings that I've been around, not professional but personal, they were not speaking for some time at the end.
Mm,
So there
mm,
was no communication. You were very blessed to have that.
yeah,
And I say that purposefully, because if you are blessed to have that, you need to take advantage of that. You think that maybe your loved one doesn't want to talk about it, doesn't want to say goodbye, but they do. Most do. And I'm not speaking for every single person. Please forgive me. Some people are very bitter and angry and don't want to discuss it. Okay. But most at the end of their lives know that the end of their lives is coming and they want to talk about it and they want to have this conversation. They want to have forgiveness. They want to resolve any differences that you may have between you. And you really need to express your love, and share some thank yous about your childhood, about all the years you've spent with them. This could be an aunt and uncle, a cousin, a friend, no matter who this is. But you need to come to terms with it in your own mind, but then help that person come to terms.
Yes.
Help them come to terms. Help them come full circle. I think about when the day comes for me, and I just hope somebody's holding my hand saying, okay, I'm here with you. You've got this. I'm gonna travel through this with you together and I'm gonna cross you over the bridge. I've got you. I've got your back. And so I'm not alone. And talk to me like that,
Yeah.
because there's things I may want to say too, that you won't get the chance if your family member or friend or loved ones don't open that door for you.
It's true.
So I think it's really important. And it's not just helping them come full circle, but
Hmm.
believe it or not, it assists in your grief process,
Yes.
right? With acceptance and healing and moving forward when you can be open and honest with these discussions.
Yeah. I have to tell you how important touch is. You know,
Yeah.
so important to hold that person's hand or to hug them or like when I was with my mom in the hospital and you have all this stuff around. I just continued to hold her and hold her hand. And I don't know what she knew. You don't know what she knew or didn't know, but I felt that I wanted to do that for her, and same thing with my husband, holding his hand and being next to him and all. Very, very
My
important.
my very good friend was lucky enough to have his parents home till they were 99. Um, his
Wow.
mom, his mom went through dementia, the last few years. So actually the last, I don't even think it was 2 weeks spent in the hospital and then they took her over to hospice. It was maybe a week and a half total. But I remember him telling me, as we spoke on the phone about, what was happening there at the hospice, um, him laying next to her in bed,
Mm.
and as far as her having dementia, it didn't matter. He held her hand, he hugged her, he says, I've got you. And some families aren't touchy-feely. Some
Yes. Yes.
families don't even say I love you.
True.
They
True.
just don't. It's awkward. It's a weird feeling for them because the family was like that from childhood. So my family was a little bit like that too. And then the minute I got married, my husband's family was a lot different. They
Oh.
were
Mhm.
grabbing me and kissing me on the lips when I walked in the door. What? Come touch me. But it only took one or two times of visiting with them all to say to my husband and myself, I like this. I
Mm.
like
Mm.
this. And this is how we all need to be with each other. So even if you didn't have that, in the years growing up, have it now. Have
Yeah.
it now. Think of yourself when it's your time to leave the world. Do you want to be by
Mm.
yourself and scared and lonely and not talking about anything because you think they're scared, they think you're scared? There's anxiety, there's no peace, there's if you're in a hospice, you're in a hospital, it doesn't matter. Make it a beautiful space. Make your space around you beautiful and touch and hug and love and say those corny, cheesy things that you never said before because you're saying goodbye. And that takes a certain kind of acceptance, I think, you know, in yourself before you even walk in that room.
Yeah. I will say that
Not to be so frightened.
saying goodbye is really a privilege. How about all those people, who die suddenly, like my father,
Right.
who I never got to say goodbye to him, and I'm sure that that was easier for him because at least he didn't suffer. But it was so difficult for us. We didn't get to
Yeah,
say any final words. We didn't get to be with him, you know. So this is a privilege, even though it's so difficult.
it really is. It really is. And there are little signs along the way, I think, that you can pick up on to know that you're not in that middle stage. We have prior videos that we did at the very beginning, if you want to look on our channel, about the stages of end of life, the shock phase, the stabilization phase, and then the transition phase. And there are little signs that you can pick up yourself along the way if you're not getting direct information from the medical professional. One is when once you start to take multiple trips to the emergency room,
Yeah.
right? And the illness is continuing and progressing significantly, and it's really affecting the quality of life in their daily life, and important decisions need to be made quickly. Being admitted just to the hospital several times, and the symptoms are just getting worse. You can feel these things. Pay attention, be aware. Um, when you talk to your loved one and you're hearing things from them that they don't want to be there. They don't want to be there. Hearing those bells and whistles, I lived there with my husband for 55 days, and I suffered for the next 6 to 9 months hearing those bells and whistles in my ears and in my brain
Mm,
every single day.
mm,
Okay, so imagine the person, well, I was there 24/7, but most of us are not. Imagine the person laying in that bed. They know they're not getting better. They know what the doctors and nurses are telling them. And when you start to hear things about they want to be home, they don't want to spend their time in the
yeah.
hospital. That's a clue that you need to listen to, and then especially when they've decided to stop receiving treatments for whatever disease that ails them. If they don't want it anymore, they don't want it. And we want them to hang on. We don't want them to leave the earth because we just can't accept that in our own right. But when they're ready, they're ready. You know, we're only here for a short time, all of us, and this is going to happen to all of you watching. So do we try and make the process at the end, the transition, a little bit better? We all have capability to do that. We all have choices to do that. But yet still, you have family members and friends who are getting angry and
Yeah.
no, eat, please eat. What is it going to
Yeah.
extend their life 5 hours?
Right. Right.
They're
Yeah.
not hungry. A
Yeah.
person's not hungry at the end of life, in the last days of end of life. Don't force them to do things that they don't want to do. So yes, like Lisa just said, if you're lucky enough to be able to still speak with your loved one during this time at the end of life, oh my God, let it be a blessing for them, for you. Have open and honest discussions and laugh and talk about it and ask them if they're afraid. Are you afraid? Well, let's talk about it. What do you think will happen? Well, if it was me, I would just have, I don't want to say fun discussion. It's not fun discussion, but it's discussion that will help them to move on to their journey, and it will help you to feel a little bit better that you were able to do that at the end,
And
right? Than
also,
if you didn't.
then also involving children. When children are involved, they really need honest answers and they need to know what's going on. And hiding it, I remember
Oh,
my husband saying that he did not know that his father had mesothelioma because they didn't want to tell him. And yet he knew his father was really, really sick and he was back and forth to the hospital for 2 years on and off. And he was so angry that his family never told him what he had and what was he was going through and that he was dying. And he never forgave his family for that. So, you think you're protecting a kid, you're not. What you're doing is you're making them feel like you're hiding something from them. So,
right. And you
mm,
really think you're helping, but what
yeah,
happens is later on it snowballs into other things and into their other relationships, and then death becomes, we're in denial, and that's why death is the second leading fear worldwide for everybody, not just for you listening,
Sure.
for everybody, because it's fear of the unknown.
Sure.
It's fear of the unknown. So if you've been around people who are dying that maybe have never been spiritual in their lives, okay, now suddenly they're questioning because it is fear of the unknown and they don't know what's to come. We have no idea. So a lot of the strength and the peace comes from our faith, and the things we believe, no matter what religion or spirituality or positive thinking, and no matter how we feel, a lot of that comes into play at the very end. So this is another discussion that can be had. Don't not speak about things like that, unless again, you have people who are angry and bitter,
Sure.
and that doesn't go away. It
Sure.
won't go away, and they don't want to hear it. They're mad at God, if there is a God, for doing this to me and my family. And sometimes you just have to accept that as well and let them speak and just offer your love and kindness and all the good things that you can to ease their mental, emotional, physical pain and discomfort, and hopefully provide a little bit of meaningful connection at the very end of their life,
And hopefully you've
right?
also discussed pre-need. You really, we had a whole thing with Crystal Gonzalez about pre-need. And the thing is, you don't want to end up in a situation at the end where you're trying to make decisions. Very hard to do that at
Pre-planning,
the
you mean,
end.
yeah,
So,
to
there's got to
pre-plan.
be, yeah, pre-plan. Yep, pre-planning.
Yeah.
Very important. So,
And what and you hear my puppy in the background. Sorry
I
about that.
don't, I don't.
Um, oh, that's a good thing. Um, but when you do, it's amazing how your situation can unfold in such a better way, with sibling rivalry, with, you know, anybody who thinks they're making different decisions. When that's done, oh, it relieves so much anxiety
Yeah,
along the journey,
yeah, yeah. And of course, there are
right?
decisions about whether you can have somebody at home or not. You have to look at what your accommodations are and whether you can be at home and who's going to help take care and who's going to, I mean, if it's 24-hour care, who is able to do that? Can you get more support? Are you eligible for other kinds of caregivers? There's a lot to think about. I'm really glad he was home. He wanted to be home. He needed to be home. And I was glad we were able to keep him at home. And after the week he had it, I knew he had it. I knew he was done. So, whereas my mom, I couldn't get out of the hospital. No matter what I did, I couldn't get her out of that hospital. So, two very different situations and two people who were absolutely dying. I mean, there was not much else I could do.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So hard. And
And those the final stages can be confusing, and we've talked about them. If you look back at the video at the transition stage, there'll be a lot more information than we're talking about here. But because there are many things for you to learn as that stage is approaching, things like your loved one laying in bed and think they need to go somewhere, that they're going on a trip. We've talked about this a lot. And the little things that can help ease their anxiety, because there's a lot of anxiety going on. Have simply putting a suitcase out and saying, okay, where are we going? Where would you like to go? Oh, remember when we went to Greece? Remember when you went? Remember your honeymoon? Tell me about that. And redirect that anxiety, just to bring some more peace and comfort into the room. You can do that. You just have to think outside of the box a little bit, and then as these symptoms and things start to happen, it's not only it doesn't necessarily mean that a person's passing in the next day or two. It means that things are starting to happen in that transition phase, and know that it's stage rather, and know that it is the end stage. So what can you do now to prepare more for this? You're going to see more drowsiness, right? You'll see more tiredness, more sleeping, more being unresponsive. When you try and wake them up, when you come in the room, it won't be as easy. Maybe not being able to speak anymore, but still continue to talk to them, talk about the weather, talk about the day, because they do say that your hearing is one of the last senses to go, and that it's important to keep that level of comfort with your words and knowing that you're there, because it
What amazed what
becomes a
amazed
confusing
me,
time.
yeah, yeah, what
Yeah.
amazed me is how incredibly accurate hospice was. They gave me all the
Oh, yeah.
instructions and everything in a folder. And when I studied it, it was incredibly classic of everything that they said that was going to happen by the day, by the hour. It was pretty amazing. It was a real education. And I educated everybody in that house, on what we could expect. And that was good for us because at least we were more prepared, and knew
Right.
what was
And
happening.
along with all this physical comfort, Lisa, to make sure that they're prepared and the things that you're reading, remember that half of the journey is the emotional comfort. It's not just the physical, you know? And you may not see it, especially if your loved one has some sign of dementia or Alzheimer's. You may not see it. They might not verbalize it, but the anxieties are there, and the fears are there still, and the fear of being alone and being abandoned. So, as being with them at the latest stage of their lives, it's up to you to provide some emotional comfort. And you could do that in several different ways. And we've talked about this many times, just by keeping company with them, spending time, carving the time out of your calendar, knowing that this is the end time. Okay. So whether it's just reading to them, bring a book, bring your favorite book, but bring something that you think that they might like. So maybe they read crime novels all their life and they're not speaking right now. Bring a crime novel, learn a little something, but watch movies together. Again, hold their hand, simply sit and hold their hand and talk to them. You don't want to be a burden to them. They have enough feelings of fear and sadness and anxiety and all these feelings that maybe they can't relate to you. So you have to really believe that they may be going through this now and finding ways to ease that, just because they can't express their fear of death and dying right now doesn't mean that it's not there.
Right, right.
Look for the signs. Don't argue.
No,
Just don't argue. Silly things can come up in conversation, maybe repetitive things, but this is your time test of life. Be that patient, loving, kind person that I know we can all be. We all have that inside of us. You might have to work at it a little bit, but it's just important to do that. Um, and honoring their wishes.
yep,
If they're
yep.
speaking up until the day before they pass, honor their wishes, no matter what that is. Make sure they have dignity. Very important, especially if hospice and medical staff are there. And you can't blame hospice and medical staff. They have their jobs to do, and they want to make them clean and comfortable and, but you also want to make sure that there's gentleness and sensitivity and that your person can maintain their sense of dignity. I remember seeing once with a client how they came in, and because because the patient wasn't responsive and couldn't speak on their own, it was easy for them to just flip and turn and have conversations about their night out last night. And you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that when you're in the room. This is the most important time of their life. Just like a baby comes into the world in a warm, celebratory way. We celebrate newborns coming into the
Yes,
world,
we do.
right?
Yeah.
We need a sense of celebration to celebrate your life. And no, we don't know where you're going either. We have that sense of fear too. We have fear of the unknown. but it's a celebration that you lived a life well lived here, and you need to be honored, and there's many ways. I'm giving a talk next week about honoring um your loved one once they're gone, and their legacy, and how that can bring life and celebrating their lives, and healing into your grieving world right now.
Yes.
So you can implement these things during the last stages and thereafter, right? And that's what you and I try and talk about, Lisa.
Yes. Yes. Not easy. And get
Right.
the help that you need to, by the way. I mean, us going through our own grieving process and knowing that this is the end. So get our own help as well. Speak to people or get professional help or whatever it is you need as well. That's really important.
And that's really important to hear us say this and to listen. Everybody goes through grief in a different way, in their own way. We talk about that all the time. But even the worst case of a grieving person, you have to know that there's a fine line, that there's a boundary. When you know in your heart and soul that you're not feeling better at all, that you want to stay under that blanket for the rest of your life. And I'm not saying to feel better in a few weeks or a few months, but there will be a time when you need to get up and shower and make yourself feel good. And if you can't do that, then that's a sign that you need outside support. And nobody really can do that for you. You can have a good friend who calls you a couple times a week, like we both do, Lisa, with people, right? We were talking about that earlier with
Mhm.
people we know who are grieving right now, but we can't spend 24/7 with them,
Right. That's right.
right? That's
Right.
right. To guide them through their grief. So you have to know better in your own heart that you're not healing,
Yeah.
you're not getting better, and you don't want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And once you can accept that and know that, well, then reach out to a friend or a family member or a loved one and say, I need help. And I don't even have the strength and energy to find my own help. You need to get me help.
Yeah.
And maybe you're hearing this early on before you're going through that really, really hard stage, because you're with a loved one right now who's going through this transition like we're talking about today. All right. So know that there may come that time that you need to just welcome the idea of some kind of support.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Yeah.
So, okay, Lisa,
Yeah.
today is just another simple conversation
Yes,
that we continue to have,
we do.
hoping that it helps and it brings some value into your life when you're going through end of life, whether before, during, or after. So if you liked any of our videos or they've helped you or a friend in any way, please like the videos, share, follow our page. The next one that pops up may be relevant to you in your life, and you'll say, oh my gosh, I know somebody who can use this. And
Yes.
we don't claim to be the best of the best at what we do, Lisa and I, but we've sure been around a lot of loss and grief, and as an end of life doula beforehand, and we both have so much experience when it comes to end of life, and we both have a need to educate and help others get through their journeys just a little bit easier if possible.
Yes. Yes.
So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Susan, tell them what you're doing next week. You're doing some kind of lighting ceremony thing. What are you doing next week?
I mentioned that a few minutes ago. It's a candlelight vigil ceremony. It's for a Pineland Cemetery, actually, here on Long Island. And that's exactly what it is. We get together and we have the fairy lights, and everybody has a candle, and I talk at the beginning and talk about how we can bring light back into our lives um, after we've lost a loved one, and ways that you can do that. So it's really been an honor that this is about the fourth time that they've called me back, and I just love being there with the families. We serve over 600 families each weekend that I speak.
So this
So
is
that
open to people. This is open to people who have loved ones in at Pine Lawn, or who's it open to?
it's open if you've lost a loved one.
Okay.
However, you do need to go onto their website and look at the events because they do close registration off at a certain point because they can only accommodate several hundred families at a time.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's still open, but you could check that if you like.
And it's supposed to be
And
next what date? When?
oh, Lisa,
Okay.
thanks for asking.
Okay.
It's in a few weeks from now.
Okay.
We still have a few weeks.
Okay.
Today is the end of September, so yeah,
19. Today's the 19th.
19th.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we have a few weeks ahead of us.
Okay. All right. I just
So
wanted to
yeah,
mention it. Okay.
check that out.
All
And
right.
Lisa and I are both available, by the way. You know, we do workshops for case managers, social workers for CE credits. I come in and give presentations to do that. And support for you or a family member before your loved one passes, during the process when you're going through all that fear, or after. After, I offer one-on-one support via Zoom, not in your home, so it's a safe space. And if a group environment is not right for you, this is why I do what I do. A group wasn't right for me at the time. So I really like the one-on-one support.
Yeah.
And Lisa,
Yes.
you
Yes. Love
are
groups. Love groups.
traveling the world. You love your group.
Traveling around. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
group. I really do believe that when you're with people who understand, have been there, I think it's very supportive. And I was very lucky. I had a lot of amazing groups that I was in.
Yes,
So
yes. And you've
they
met
were,
so many wonderful people
yeah,
and you still stay connected,
I do.
which is really important.
I do.
And Lisa does bereavement work as well. So reach out to us anytime.
Yep.
Our numbers and our websites are here. And we'll be happy to get back to you and answer any questions or send you with any resources and help as much as we can.
And if you have any suggestions of topics that you'd really like to see us discuss, we're good at that. We're open to other subjects or other topics that are really important to you. So please let us know,
Fantastic.
comment, email. Our information's right up there. So, yeah,
We're available
good,
at all times.
good.
Thank you very much
Okay,
for sharing and have a wonderful week. And we'll see you next week.
thank you. Bye.